Mr. President of the General Assembly, Secretary General, President of the Council, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. Human rights is the common language of our shared humanity. It is about how we interact with each other as individuals, within societies, between countries, as well as with our environment and the planet. At its heart is the recognition of human dignity, the need for power dynamics and relationships to be based on respect. Human rights unifies us, and it can overcome polarization, especially in its striving for equity, shared prosperity and justice. Let me begin at the beginning. We have also seen the growth of other innovative movements that draw on human rights principles. Among them, movements for the rights of indigenous people, Black Lives Matter, Me Too, and Fridays for Future, to name a few. Young people in particular consistently speak in the language of human rights when giving voice to their concerns. I pay tribute to all human rights defenders of the past and present. Human rights is a force to reckon with, not because it serves the interests of the powerful, but because it has captured the imagination of the powerless. Still, as we know too well today, the oppression of the past can return in various disguises. The old authoritarianism, with its brutal limits on freedoms writ large, and the suffocating straitjacket of patriarchy. The old destructive wars of aggression from a bygone era with worldwide consequences, as we have witnessed again in Europe with the senseless Russian invasion of Ukraine. The new supple artificial intelligence, blurring fact and fiction and raising uncharted risks, and the tumultuous online world where viral deceptions threaten our elections, our health, our security, and more. Let us hope that 2023 will be the moment in which we finally shift the balance from exploitation of digital technology for profit and oppression to greater investment in digital innovation to tackle our biggest challenges, poverty, climate change, and inequality. If there was ever a moment to revitalize the hope of human rights for every person, it is now. Yet, much of the progress made over decades is being reined back and even reversed in some parts, most conspicuously for women and girls, the civic space, and the freedoms enjoyed at times of peace and through sustainable development, and the list is long. With an eye to the past, as well as to the future, in the spirit of never again, and in the interest of intergenerational justice, it is critical that we rekindle the spirit, the impulse, and the vitality that led to the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 75 years ago. We need to forge a new worldwide consensus on human rights, broadening its base of support and moving forward together in recognition that our survival depends on finding our way back to that common language. Our institutions, which exist to advance all civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights on an equal footing, as well as the right to development and the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, are in a unique position to rebuild this shared respect for each other's dignity. Our goal must be to promote and implement a 21st century human rights vision that is transformative, solution-oriented, unifying, and that speaks directly to every person's need for justice and search for meaning in life. It is against this backdrop that we have embarked this year on the Human Rights 75 initiative, first and foremost to rebuild trust. Trust between states, that they will act in line with international law and the agreements which they themselves have crafted, and jointly work to advance the common good. Trust between people and their governments, which have promised to represent and serve them. Trust between communities and trust with future generations and the planet. We can rise above the fray and use human rights not as a weapon in the context of geopolitical shifts, not as a nice to have for sunny days in the future, but as what it is and was always meant to be, a solution to help us get out of the harms that are destroying our world. I invite all member states and all relevant actors to take the lead in advancing all human rights across the world and in their own nations. And as we commemorate these important anniversaries this year, let us use this opportunity to re-energize and update our work and to de-escalate, to overcome our differences through solidarity and genuine dialogue, working across geopolitical divides with a clear vision to advance the needs of every country and the rights of all. And so I ask all of you to deepen cross-regional engagement, to revive the spirit of universality that is the foundation of our work, and to ensure that important discussions on worrying situations to which no country is immune, as well as on racism and the right to development, move forward in the interests of all. I encourage you to ensure that serious violations and abuses are addressed wherever they may occur, and not to fall into the trap of denial or obfuscation. I encourage you to address your people's rights to freedom from want and to freedom from fear on an equal footing and with the same emphasis, so that all human rights can strengthen each other and support the renewal of the much-needed social contract between the institutions of the state and their peoples. I urge you to communicate to the public your sincere commitment to human rights and to counter the rising tide of hatred and division. I urge you to help put the world back on track, to realize the promises of enduring peace, sound development and justice, to strive for greater solidarity within and between countries in much needed discussions on reform of the international financial architecture, the legacy of colonialism and compensation for climate change. And I ask you to help re-establish our generation's commitment to human rights by sharing with us transformational promises that you would like to make at the high-level event that we have planned in December. I, for my part, am committed to principled and practical engagement with states. It is my responsibility to reflect back to you the reality that we see in our careful and methodical monitoring and to work with you to assist improvement. And I'm duty-bound to speak out on trends that are detrimental to human rights. As is standard practice, I will provide a detailed global update on specific country and regional situations on 7 March, in addition to the various country-specific statements that form part of the agenda of this Council session. I will always be ready to listen to your concerns, willingness to engage in genuine dialogue, a desire to seek common denominators even in the midst of fierce disagreements is, I believe, core to our common language. Engagement, however, is not an end in itself, but must take us forward and ultimately effect positive change in people's lives. And so I will endeavor to promote advances in all human rights without distinction in every region and across all UN activities. I will do my utmost to fulfill states' requests for cooperation, good offices and guidance, and for my office and the human rights system to be inclusive and responsive. We have more in common than we think. And if we hark back to our origins and to look forward to what the world could be in the future, we can see that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights not only voices ancient wisdoms from all cultures, but will ensure our survival. Thank you, Mr. President.